Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Our panelists are already lined up, so let's convene today's summit. And oh boy, what a panel we have for you today. From Abu Dhabi, joining us, Professor Gong Jiang, Vice President of Research and Strategy at UIBE Israel. From Taipei, Dr. Sana Hashmi, Postdoctoral Fellow of the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. And here in our Tel Aviv studios, Mr. Tal Reshef, East Asia expert. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. And the viewers probably guessed it right. Our main topic for today is D-Day nearing. If China was indeed to invade Taiwan, how would the world respond? Let's take a closer look and pick up the conversation right after.
An island on the edge, and the whole world is watching. China has announced that it has finished conducting military exercises around Taiwan following an escalation in tension at the possibility of reclaiming the territory. This was further exacerbated by the visit of US Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi to the island. But whilst China claims that the military exercises are done, it has said that it will remain patrolling and conducting drills throughout the area, implying that it will be sooner rather than later for Beijing to make an attempt to take full control of the island. This is a major concern for the West, as more than half of the world's global electronic devices have some origin in Taiwan. And with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent economic issues that have risen from this, the world can only look on through the gaps in their fingers. But if China were to invade Taiwan, how will the world respond? What is the intention of the United States? And what next for Taiwan?
So let's get to it. Maybe it's not even a question of if, but rather a question of when. What is next for Taiwan? Dear panelists, you know the rules. You each get 30 seconds to lay out your initial stance on the issue, and we pick up the conversation right after. So Professor Jiang, please take the lead.
Well, I think it all boils down to the exact meaning of changing the status quo. I think this is something that the United States is very much opposed to, and as well as China is opposed to as well. I think my understanding is that Taiwan has been mostly responsible for changing the status quo in terms of a lot of things. I just give you a few examples. For example, the passport of Taiwan explicitly is trying to decentralize its name. The country's name, I mean, it's not even a country. I mean, officially its name is called the Republic of China. Now it's stuffing this word China into Taiwan into this. There's a whole series of other things. For example, the textbook that talked about history and all.
And we will get to all these examples in a split second, Professor Jiang, but let's finish this opening round first. Dr. Hashmi, your thoughts?
I don't think we're going to see war anytime soon in the Taiwan Strait, but what China has done is to just increase its aggression. And I think it's China that is changing the status quo and not Taiwan. If we're talking about the parliamentary delegation visits to Taiwan, it has been happening, and I don't think it's actually political in nature. So even after the fire drill, what we are seeing right now is China continuing with its drill. So what it is doing is to just normalize its aggression, normalizing its exercises, so that it becomes a new normal. So I think this is just China's way of using Pelosi's visit to justify its aggression against Taiwan.
The new normal. Mr. Reshef, last but not least, your take?
We're in a situation that is in favor of all the sides that are involved. Nobody wants an escalation. It will not help anybody, neither Taiwan or United States or China. As long as China does not feel that they are cornered by any acts that undermine its claim over the island. But on the same time, China is taking provocative steps towards isolating Taiwan from connections around the world. So as long as nothing dramatic happens, it helps all the sides.
Well, and we will be talking about what dramatic things can potentially happen in a split second. From this point onwards, dear panelists, please feel free to interact. And that brings me to my first question to you. Now, in the aftermath of the Pelosi visit and the fallout we're seeing, was it needed, or was it merely an uncalled for provocation, Professor Jiang?
Well, of course, it's totally uncalled for. The fact that there's a previous Congress speaker visiting the Taiwan many years ago doesn't serve the right. At the time, there was a massive protest from China's side. So you can't justify this provocative move by a previous provocative move. I mean, that's just absurd to me. So I think what Taiwan needs to do is to do some soul searching and think about why we have, what led to this current status, and that come back to the table and talk about, a peaceful solution for Taiwan. Force is the last resort. This is not going to be about invading Taiwan. It's about serving as a warning that if Taiwan is keeping on this path towards independence, which is clearly an act of changing the status quo, it's not going to be free. It has consequences.
Dr. Hashmi, your thoughts?
I don't think it was a provocation at all. As I mentioned in my initial remarks, that there is no departure from the past. Visits have been happening for the past several years, and even recently there have been several similar visits from Europe and even from the US. So why China had to react the way it is reacting? So I really don't, and I think it's definitely Taiwan's right to receive dignitaries in Taiwan, and I don't think there's any change in the status quo, be it from the US or Taiwan. US has mentioned several times that their policy remains unchanged. They adhere to the one China policy, and they don't support Taiwan independence. And even from Taiwan's side, I haven't really come across any statement from the leadership that they have said that we are striving for independence. What they have said is that we believe in status quo and we will maintain the status quo. So what I see is that China is the one that's actually breaching the status quo, and not Taiwan and not even the US.
And Mr. Reshef, what message did the US intended to pass with this visit, and what message did at last pass?
I'm not sure that there was a message intended to be passed by the United States. I'm not sure. Maybe there was. But my impression is that it was a step taken by Mrs. Pelosi, and that had to have her last words before leaving her position. I think for the United States State Department, it was the hot potato. They tried to get rid of it. But once it was put on the table, they could not ignore it. They could not turn back. Yeah. Absolutely. They could not submit to the demands from mainland China.
And Mr. Reshef, those mutual military drills we've seen, what have we learned, if anything at all, about how will each side is going to operate, if and when, of course?
Well, there's the military point. It is not my expertise. I cannot say much about this. But I don't think that the drills were meant to take any step in this direction. China does not want war. A war will be against their interests in any possible way. And you have already mentioned that the need for Taiwanese semiconductors. It is one of the things. It is not the only one. The international situation of mainland China, the things that they learned from the war in Ukraine, everything points to the direction of no war. It's against the benefit of China.
Before we jump to the conclusions or lessons learned from the Ukraine war, yes or no, Professor Zhang, let's stay with the Chinese state of mind, if you will. What is at stake for President Xi here? Can he really allow himself to an extent to back down? Is there an exit point? Maybe I'll phrase it that way.
Well, I mean, the Chinese side doesn't view the words, but look at the deeds. I'll give you several examples on Washington's part. When China established diplomatic relationship with the United States, in one of these communiques, it said very clearly, the quality and quantity of arms sales to Taiwan has to be reduced. Second, there should be no official diplomatic high-level government exchanges. All of the things are being violated at this point. So to say that United States government's policy hasn't changed is just totally untrue in my view. On the Taiwan side, I'm running out of time, but I have numerous examples about hollowing out the one China policy, doing everything possible to de-nationalizing Taiwan in all aspects of society, while at the same time claiming that nothing has changed. I mean, this is totally absurd.
And Dr. Hashmi, in this respect, there have been several crises in the past surrounding Taiwan. Most recently, quite a while ago, back in 1995, the Third Strait crisis. Has the situation been that tense before, or maybe we feel it is potentially tense, but again, not unprecedented.
I think this is one of the reasons why we don't see that Taiwan and Taiwanese are panicking. This is not unprecedented. As I said, the aggression has always been there. What is new is that China's attempts to turn it into something that's new normal. So I don't think that was the fourth straight crisis, or that's going to turn into fourth straight crisis. Of course, it's too early to say, but I don't think we are moving towards that direction as of now. But I think why this happened right now, because Chinese side, Xi Jinping, they had to follow through the threats they have been talking about for the past 3 weeks. So I think that was one of the reasons why it happened. But I don't really see the fourth straight crisis happening anytime soon.
And Dr. Hashmi, meanwhile, perhaps military activity is not knocking on the door. We do see different type of activity. Now allegations that there's this Chinese disinformation campaign on social media targeting Taiwan. If we're looking not too far away to Hong Kong, what similarities can we identify, yes or no? In Hong Kong, it doesn't matter how many protests swayed the streets. China continued with its own raison d'etat.
So I feel that what happened in Hong Kong was one of the reasons why Taiwanese are so determined to protect what they have earned in the past 25 years, more than 25 years, the democracy. And I think Hong Kong was that trigger. And you're right about it. Apart from the military activities, what we are going to see is, of course, Chinese side spreading disinformation, launching cyber attacks, economic coercion. We have already seen what China has been doing. And of course, further intensification in the naval and air incursion. So I think all these things have been happening for a very, very long time. The Taiwanese side has been kind of responding to that. But I think what we're going to see is we're going to see more and more of these moves from the Chinese side.
More of the same. Professor Jiang, until this or let me phrase it that way. What will be the tipping point? What will be this point in time that could trigger some sort of an escalation?
Well, as so far, China's Taiwan policy has been mostly about embracing the Taiwanese. I mean, look at the number of business people from Taiwan investing in China, living in Shanghai, for example. Reportedly, close to 500,000 people are living there. Look at the trade situation. Taiwan, 1/3 of the trade of Taiwan is actually with mainland China. It maintains over $100 billion trade surplus for Taiwan. We're talking about, if you're using Donald Trump's words, hundreds of billions of dollars of benefits. We're not going to use the word steal money from Taiwan, but stolen money by Taiwan, but I think it's a lot of economic benefits to Taiwan, that's for sure. So I think at this point, Beijing still has a friendly policy towards Taiwan, hoping that both sides can come to the table and talk out a solution. But the problem is that I think on the Taiwan side, there's this very popular sentiment instigated by various forces to move drifting and further away from this unified China vision, and going on this path of entirely denationalizing, all aspects of Taiwanese society. And I think this is a very, very dangerous move.
Well, Dr. Hashmi, I saw that you were quite perplexed with what Professor Jiang just said, but we are taking a very short break, so we will continue from that point exactly right after, and we'll also broaden our discussion to the global impact of the situation in Asia. So we're taking a very short break, but our panelists are staying with us, and so should you.